He doesn't have a roommate yet.
As Mayor of the Stanton City Council, I call the work session to order for the Stanton City Council on August 26, 2021. First item on the agenda is a consideration of work session and regular meeting agendas. I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor,
Councilor Claffey.
I move that we approve the work session agenda and regular meeting agenda as presented.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Mayor Oakes.
Councilor Darby.
I second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Zinni, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Oakes.
Aye.
Ms. Mead.
Aye.
Ms. Dull.
Aye.
Mr. Claffey.
Aye.
Ms. Darby.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item is item 2, a presentation and discussion of a resolution authorizing refinancing of 2005, 2012, 2013, and 2019 bonds. Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Phil Traer, the city's Chief Finance Officer, will present this item.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of council, it's a pleasure to be here this evening. Tonight we are here to introduce and review a proposal to refinance our eligible tax-supported debt via the Virginia Resource Authority Fall Pool Offering. Each year, staff works with our bond consultants, Davenport Public Finance, to identify saving opportunities for the city. At the present time, interest rates through the VRA are projected to be in the 1.25% range. When applied to outstanding tax-supported debt, we are looking at gross savings of between $530,000 and $720,000 to our debt service fund. With us this evening is Mr. Ted Cole of Davenport Finance and Mr. Chris Culp of Hunt & Andrews, our bond counsels. These two will review our refinancing process and answer questions that you may have. Mr. Cole.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much. I'm Ted Cole with Davenport & Company. I believe you all have hard copies of the presentation, and it's on the screen as well. There are page numbers in the lower right-hand corner of my presentation, and I was going to go through the first couple of pages. I would be happy to answer questions along the way if you have them. And if you go to it's the third page, but it's labeled page 2, and at the top it says the VRA refunding summary. Virginia Resources Authority is a state funding program for local governments. They issue debt 3 times a year. They will be selling bonds on behalf of local governments in late October. So if this were to move forward, that is the pool, they call it a pool program that we would be a part of. The city has used Virginia Resources Authority before for other loans. So you have a history of having worked through them. We've gone through and looked at all of the existing debt of the city, and we've identified these 4 loans as potential candidates for refunding: 05, 2012, 2013, and 2019. They happen all to be with banks right now, and they have prepayment language in them. When we secured those loans with those banks, prepayment language was approved, and we're eligible to refund those through the Virginia Resources Authority if that's something that you all ultimately want to approve. On this table, you'll see the amount outstanding for each of them. When we push it all together, we're a little over 18 million worth of debt that might be refunded. You can see the current interest rates. All of those rates are fixed today through the final maturity, so they will not change unless you were to propose or approve a refunding. And we would only do this if we're generating savings. You can also see the final maturity of each of those loans. Part of the analysis that we've done is that we're not going to shorten the debt or extend the debt. So it's going to, if we refund it, it will still mature in the same fiscal year as it's scheduled to mature in now. So we are not extending or shortening any debt. Ultimately, on September 9th, there'll be a resolution for you all to consider that, among other things, will establish some parameters. And those are sort of the rules of what would allow you all to move forward in the VRA bond program. Because remember, they don't actually issue their bonds until late October. So we're sort of floating with the market. between now and then. And so in that resolution, we establish parameters that say we can't issue more than this amount of debt. The debt can't mature beyond a certain date. And I'm going to talk about those parameters in a moment. The interest rate can't be above a certain level. And because this is a refunding, we're also going to establish a minimum level of savings so that if you approve the resolution on the 9th of September, you have an out if we're not able to achieve the minimum level of savings, because we might find that interest rates move higher and that you don't want to do the deal if you're not generating savings. So you have some protection of a minimum level of savings. And if we're not able to achieve that, you don't have to move forward and you don't have any costs to incur. So that's the universe of the 4 loans that we're looking at. We have made an application to VRA. It's a non-binding application. There's no fee to do it. It's in. They're assessing the credit. We have no reason to believe that they would have any concerns about the city's credit, but they will ultimately provide a term sheet and an approval in due course. If we could go to the next page. Somebody is doing this for me. Thank you. Like magic. Across this page is each of the 4 loans and the grand total on the right. And as you go down the line, each of those lines is numbered. You can see some of the key statistics for the existing loans. So in the top 6 lines, you'll see the maturities that are left, how much is outstanding, whether there's a call, a premium for prepayment or not, and what the current interest rates are. That's sort of the status quo. The bottom of this page is giving you what we call the sources and uses. We have set this up as if it were to be done in the VRA fall pool, and we've accounted for all of the issuance costs that would be applicable to a pool. We've erred a little bit on the high side. We believe we've got ample cushion in there for issuance costs. If anything, I would expect that they would come down, and for every dollar that they come down, there would be an additional dollar of savings. But we believe this is representative of the level of costs you would have to participate in that program. And at the very bottom, you'll see some of the key statistics of what the current market is offering through VRA. And you'll see on line, I believe it's line 26, what we call the all-in true interest cost is about a 1.23%. So we've got loans that are currently between a 188 and a 343 rate, and we're talking about the ability to get into the low 1% range, and that's where the benefit is being created, the savings are being created. If you go one more slide, you will see for each individual loan, based on the current interest rates through VRA, what the annual savings are estimated to be. So you can see that you would recognize the savings on a fiscal year by fiscal year basis. Again, we're not extending the term of any individual loan. So the 2005s are going to pay off in fiscal year 25, just like they are. You can see total savings are about $33,000. Obviously, by itself, it's not a real game changer to your budget, but savings are savings at this point. It's a pretty small loan. It only has a couple of years left to run. And at some point, you're either going to get savings from it or you're just going to pay it off at its existing rate through maturity. The 2012s go out to 2028, as do the 2013s. In the CFO's memo, he also backtracked for you all and gave you a little perspective about what each of those loans originally funded. If there are questions about that, we can answer it. And then finally, the 2019 bond is the longest bond. It goes out to 2034. So on the far right, when you push those all together, you can see what the estimated savings are by fiscal year. They sum up to about $627,000. And at the bottom of that page, we have just shown you how the savings would change with a movement of interest rates 10 basis points higher or 10 basis points lower, a basis point being going from 3% to 3.10%. That's 10 basis points. So just so you all have a little perspective about how the savings change as interest rates go up or go down, which they will inevitably do between now and late October when these bonds are priced. And that begins to get us to a discussion about one of the key measurements of the efficiency of a refunding is on line 4. It's called the NPV. That stands for net present value savings. And we typically measure that in a percentage. And if you look at the far right of this page on line 4, the aggregate net present value savings of this refunding is about 2.67%. The dollar savings as a percent of the bonds we're refunding is 2.67%. What you're going to see in the resolution, we've got a bracketed number that the minimum savings are 1% net present value. You can set that at whatever level you might want to, right? You could set that at 2%. You could set that at 1.5% as a minimum. That's going to be the minimum number that allows you to only participate if this makes sense, right? So if we can't achieve that minimum level of savings, you don't have to move forward. You're not in the pool, and you have no financial obligation. So the resolution currently establishes a 1% minimum net present value. The thought being, as we worked through this with staff and we looked at what happens when rates move higher, what happens to the savings, was that some of these loans are pretty short, meaning they only have a few years left to run. And there is a point at which, if you don't take advantage of a refunding now, another year goes by, will you be in any better position to take advantage of a refunding? And we are maybe not at the absolute lowest level of rates. We're pretty close to the bottom. That's not to say that rates couldn't go lower, but they certainly have more room to go higher. And I'm not suggesting they will definitely go higher, but our thinking was for these loans that establishing a lower minimum threshold savings made some sense because we are in a very low interest rate environment. These loans, some of them are small or don't have many years to run, and the smaller the loan and the shorter the amortization, the harder it is to generate savings. And that was part of our rationale in establishing that parameter. So, last page on this, page 5, lays out for you all where we might go from here. Tonight is discussion ahead of the September 9th meeting. Myself and Chris Culp with Hunt and Andrews Kurth, who's your bond counsel, are available to attend that meeting, obviously. At that meeting, there will be a resolution for you all to consider. I believe you have a draft of that in your packet. Chris and his folks have drafted that in consultation with the city attorney and staff. And you will see on September 9th the highlights of that resolution. It will have all the boilerplate information in there needed for municipal bonds and participation in VRA. But there's 4 key points that we look at, and that is the parameters that establish that minimum savings level of 1%, a par amount, which is a loan amount not to exceed 22.2. Keep in mind, if we do this, we will only issue enough debt to pay off the old bonds and nothing more. So you're not going to be left over with some rounding large amount that you don't know what to do with. But we like to set that, we have to set a not to exceed amount, and we like to put a little cushion in there for what the rates may do, but you will only issue as much debt as is needed to pay off the old debt and pay the issuance costs. So there will not be any sort of extra money that falls to the bottom line. We have a final maturity not to exceed December of 2034. That takes us out to the final year of the 2019 loan. So again, we're not going to extend that. And a not to exceed interest rate of 2.2%, which is above current market. But we also know we want to leave ourselves a little bit of cushion. If rates do go up, we still want to take advantage of this, but we don't want to take advantage of it if we can't achieve that 1% saving. If that resolution is approved, October 27 is the date that VRA would sell their bonds. That's the date that the interest rates are locked in and the savings would be known. And then they would close their loan a couple of weeks later, mid-November, and that's when the old bonds would be paid off simultaneous with the new bonds being closed. Let me stop there. There's other detail in the back of this about your other pieces of debt that just aren't ready to be refunded. I suspect they will be at some point in the future. They just have certain interest rates or terms and conditions that aren't conducive to a refunding right now.
Any questions? Councilor
Mayor.
Claffey.
You mentioned earlier that all these were covered by banks.
Currently held by banks, yes.
Yes. And so there is no prepayment penalty. Once it gets put in a pool, is there?
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, the pool program through the Virginia Resources Authority has a standard 10-year no prepayment language. So if we were to do this, I think you would consider, for all intent and purposes, these bonds would be non-callable or non-prepayable in the future. I'm glad you mentioned that. So this is sort of your last shot, if you will, at refunding these.
Question.
Madam Mayor.
Councilor Meade.
Yes.
I think for clarity that a couple of these bonds do currently have prepayment penalties. Didn't you say that?
Yes, if you look at page 3.
Bank of America bond and the SunTrust bonds.
That's right.
Those are 1%.
Line number 5. That's right. So where it says 101, that's a 1% penalty. That's included in our analysis. Where it says 100%, that means there's no penalty. It's just you pay the par amount, as we call it.
And so if we end up not doing the deal because interest rates go the wrong way, there would be no expense to us for the legal and
none at all. No expense for you all, and the existing loans just remain in place.
And where is the bond counsel and your fee, the Davenport's fee, built into this?
When you look at that same page 3, over on the far right, there's a listing on lines 18 through 21 of the estimated costs of issuance. Again, I think we've purposely erred a little bit on the high side. We would, in due course here, be able to give the CFO the details of where the actual fees would be, but that's where they're sort of listed out between the city level costs and the VRA program costs.
Madam Mayor.
Vice Mayor Robertson.
Just to make sure I understand, Brenda touched on part of what I was going to ask. So you're saying best case scenario, total savings $627.50, could go higher, could go lower depending on those basis points. Is that $627 inclusive of your fees?
Yes, and I would clarify one item on that. The $627 is the current estimate. Best case scenario, it's rates fall and you get the 700 or even greater, right? But to your other point, yes, the savings that we're showing you here, we've assumed that if you move forward in the borrowing that you do, you borrow enough money to pay off the old bonds and to pay the issuance costs. So you're not coming out of pocket directly for those costs. And then what we do with the savings is we compare the debt payments today to the new debt payments, and we come up with these savings. And within the new debt payments, the cost of issuance are included. So you can consider anything on this page as the true net savings to the city. Nothing has to be deducted.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Councilor Meade.
So based on item line 4 on page 4, the current net present value savings for the plan is 2.66.
On a combined basis, when you push all of those together and get the weighted NPV percentage, yes.
And so just to translate that to the 1% minimum net present value, rates would have to increase by around 1.7% between now and November for that to not work anymore?
Not quite. There's a little more math involved than that.
Well, don't do too much math.
No, somebody else has done this math. And so I want to give you that perspective. The rates would have to go up from where they are today by what we call 38 basis points, 0.38%. So it would have to go from, for example, from 1% to 1.38%, which is a pretty significant move in the tax exempt municipal world. Not unprecedented, but it's a significant move higher. So it's just sort of the mechanism we've established with VRA so that you all can make a decision about something in early September that isn't going to occur till late October, and you've got some protection. And at the September 9th meeting, we'll be able to give you an update on where rates are as of that day and periodically as needed as we go towards October if we're going to proceed.
Any additional questions? Councilor Holmes?
Is it possible to lock in those rates now?
Not through their program. They issue on very specific timetables, and so they have a schedule that they put together. October 27th is the option. And I'll tell you why this makes sense right now without getting too detailed. When you go to a bank and you have, let's just call it a 10-year loan, they're going to give you a rate that's applicable to each of the 10 years. It's a flat rate. When you go to VRA, and really what they're doing is they're going to the bond market on behalf of this pool, and they're selling these individual bonds years 1 through 10 in my example, and they're getting 10 different interest rates that blend to what is currently under or right over 1%. And it's just two different ways to issue debt. And right now, the way short-term rates are so low, there's an advantage of going to that bond market through VRA. You could do it in your own name. We're not going to get there any faster. And VRA has a very streamlined program for you all to participate in. But that is why we can't achieve the same level of savings through a bank loan today, because you get that flat rate. Whereas if you go to the bond market via VRA, in this case, you're taking advantage of really low rates in the early years, and they kind of step up, but they're stepping up very marginally right now because generally speaking, short-term rates are very low.
But our rates would stay the same. If we got the loan, our rate wouldn't change.
When you close, it will be set, and it will never change unless you do something to change it.
And one other thing, this will not affect our credit or our ability to borrow.
Certainly not negatively. It creates savings. The only reason we do it, so that would create some capacity within your budget, all things being equal, to consider doing other things, whatever it may be.
Okay. We're about 3 minutes past our time, but I did want to just verify something. You stated on page 5 not to exceed the final maturity of December 31st, 2034. No extension past the 2019 loan.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Right. Thank you for coming out. We appreciate the information. So the next item is item 3, a presentation of possible flood mitigation strategies. Mr. Rosenberg.
Madam Mayor, John Glover, our building official, will present this item.
Welcome, Mr. Glover.
Madam Mayor, members of council. In response to the devastating flooding in August of 2020 that resulted in 166 reports of damage, estimated at $3.1 million, city staff has since been working on a flood mitigation strategy that I have for you this evening. First step was a study by Wiley and Wilson, on which council was briefed at its meeting of May 27th, 2021. And the summary of that, there was links to that presentation in your packet. So you can look at the presentation, the study, and the appendix that went along with that. Many of the engineered solutions presented in the study, while effective, may not be achievable given the city's limited fiscal resources. A team has been assembled from various city departments and outside agencies to undertake a holistic approach to the problem. The team considered the study recommendations and other non-engineering solutions and evaluated each based on the cost, the effectiveness, and the speed of implementation. The team determined that it is impractical to entirely eliminate the impacts of the events such as those that occurred last August, but those impacts can be reduced and our resiliency increased. Team is now prepared to make the following recommendations in ascending order, with the most strongly recommended measure identified last. Number 5, supplemental flood insurance program. We're exploring the establishment of a supplemental flood insurance program. Many of the city's flooding events are not covered by the FEMA National Flood Insurance Program for many reasons. Due to their localized nature and the limited coverage limitations from FEMA. For instance, if you have a basement, it may not cover your basement, which floods. So there's many limitations to that coverage. But there are some existing offerings from insurance companies of supplemental policies for losses not covered by FEMA. They're currently available right now. We need more time to develop this and explore it, but this may become just an educational piece to let citizens, property owners, make them aware that there are these policies available to them already. Estimated cost is minimal, if any, to the city. Time, like I said, a little more research is required, but this could happen rather quickly. It could be just a public information piece almost, maybe. We're not sure where that would go. You know how many insurance companies do offer it. Effectiveness, this is a direct benefit to flood-prone properties. Number 4, existing tunnel maintenance and improvements. A tunnel maintenance and improvement program could maximize the capacity of the existing tunnels and that convey Lewis and Peyton Creeks through downtown. Such a program would include an inspection and maintenance of the tunnels, along with possible improvements to them to mitigate choke points, like the confluence of Lewis and Peyton Creek that's underneath the wharf parking lot. The next step in establishing such a program is a thorough study of the tunnel system, addressing 3 primary areas. Structural, you determine if the structural soundness and any repairs that may be needed. Repeated storms over the years have probably caused some damage that needs to be evaluated for those repairs. Detailed mapping and geometry. The previous study was a 10,000-foot study of the tunnel. This would be a very detailed study of just the tunnel and nothing else. Recommendation of repairs that may be needed. And the second part would be the hydraulic analysis. Identify areas requirement for debris removal. Should be requiring debris removal. I just caught that. I apologize for my typo there. Construction plan for removing such debris, and identify additional access points needed for debris removal, future inspection, and maintenance. Develop detailed hydraulic model based on the mapping, and identify existing utility crossings and other areas with the greatest adverse effect on stormwater flow, and determine their ability to be relocated or mitigated. There's a lot of utilities that cross through this tunnel that cause obstructions. And number 3, the legal aspect. Ownership of the tunnel and access to it, particularly where it is not in the public right-of-way. Environmental permitting requirements for repairs and for debris removal. These components are interdependent. For example, debris will need to be removed from some areas in order to provide a complete structural inspection and mapping. And permitting and access requirements will need to be determined to develop a plan for the debris removal. The result of this investigation could be a fully designed, shovel-ready, one-time contract to remove existing debris, establish the appropriate access points for future maintenance and repairs and improvements to the existing tunnel. It would also produce a recommended maintenance plan to be implemented after the initial project. Finally, it would produce a list of future improvements that could be evaluated and programmed for future development through the capital improvement plan process. Staff is not aware of any routine inspection and maintenance plan having been implemented or followed previously, beyond occasional limited inspections after suspected damage from major storm events. Estimated costs, $650,000 for evaluation and design, and $7 million for projects. Ongoing maintenance costs are difficult to project, but $7 million for the project. And it's hard to determine what the maintenance will cost us we don't know the frequency even, whether that would be every 5 years, every year. We don't know until they do the detailed study. Time of implementation. It would be possible to have an investigation request for proposals prepared for late FY 2022 issuance, but follow-up steps would be highly dependent on the results of the investigation. Expenditures in FY 2023-24 would be likely. Effectiveness. A more detailed understanding of the condition of the tunnel would immediately improve decision-making, but the tangible hydraulic effects will take longer to develop as projects are implemented. The effects of the recurring maintenance program will take the longest to manifest. Number 3, public education and information. One very effective tool in flood mitigation toolbox is public education. There are many simple, low-cost strategies that residential and non-residential property owners can implement to reduce the impact of flooding on their properties. Strategies range from keeping gutters and storm drains free of debris to elevating utilities in a basement. These strategies can greatly minimize damage and potential repair costs. In order for property owners to implement these measures, they first need to be made aware of them and provided with a how-to information. Public education compared to other mitigation options can be instituted quickly and consistently through existing outlets such as the city's website, our social media presence, engagement activities such as workshops for citizens to educate them on the floodplain, why flooding occurs, and how to mitigate the consequences. The benefit of public education for the city, besides being cost effective, is that it reaches a wide audience. This wide reach is especially important because, as witnessed with last August storm, flooding in the city affects not only those who live in the floodplain. We had a lot of damage reports that were outside of the delineated FEMA floodplain. Estimated cost, nothing to $5,000 annually. Time of implementation immediately and ongoing. Effectiveness helps prevent nuisance and basement flooding and provides tools to property owners to be better prepared for larger events. Flood shields and flood proofing. Number 2. After another flood in the city in August of 2003, the city applied for and received a grant from FEMA through its hazard mitigation grant program to install flood shields and other flood proofing measures in businesses along Central and Lewis Streets and in the Wharf area. Because of the historic age of many buildings and the elevation of businesses below grade level, the goal of this project was to reduce potential flooding in structures, but these mitigations were never intended to completely eliminate it. Since the early 2000s, flood shields have improved dramatically in both their ease of installation and their design and fabrication, including the use of lighter, more durable materials. Property owners in floodplain areas may be interested in implementation of the new floodproofing technology, which would facilitate increased usage. Several funding sources may be available and may be combined, including grants, cost-sharing arrangements, and property owner contributions, with in-kind contribution to be made by the city. Flood shields are one useful mitigation tool available to property owners. Estimated costs. The previous program in 2003 included an average grant funding of $23,000 for each of the 10 businesses that participated. Time of implementation, applying for grant funding about 18 months, shield installation 6 months, effectiveness. Shields are effective at repelling up to 3 feet of floodwaters. Shields cannot be built higher due to hydrostatic pressure of floodwaters against building foundations. But as we can see last August, 3 feet would have made a difference. And I think some property owners may have gotten theirs in place, but not all. The time was, they didn't have much time. And number one, weather sensors and warning system. Based on the results of the flood study and research done since its completion, staff have determined that the most impactful and cost-effective action that can be taken almost immediately would be establishment of a sensor system that would allow warnings of imminent floods. The weather sensors would provide vital data that would foster a better understanding of the city's hydrology and serve as the trigger for a proactive emergency warning system that would provide valuable minutes needed to take actions to reduce property damage and potential loss of life. The sensors would monitor rainfall throughout the city and the levels of key waterways, triggering an alert when established criteria are met. The specifics of such a system would require additional development, and the threshold criteria would be refined as staff collect better hydrological data. The cost of such systems range from $2,500 to $4,000 per unit, with additional annual monitoring costs ranging from $600 to $800. Staff anticipates the need for 15 to 20 units located throughout the city. Additional units could be easily added to the network as needed. The total cost, including installation, approximates plus or minus $65,000, plus $2,000 annually for data transmission and monitoring. Staff has identified such a system currently provided by a Virginia nonprofit organization in partnership with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Preliminarily, this partnership has identified Stanton as an appropriate location in Virginia for implementation of the partnership system, based on the history of flooding in the city's downtown area. Were the city to participate in that partnership in its current statewide project, a number of flood sensors may be provided to the city at no charge per unit and with no operating costs. Upon project completion in November of 2022, the sensors will be left in place for the city's continued use, with ownerships of the sensors transferring to the city. By the same time, the city would assume annual operating and maintenance costs. By participating in this project, the city would greatly reduce its implementation cost. Estimated cost, $0 to $65,000 up front and $2,000 annually. Time. This could be implemented rather quickly and possibly completed in a few months. Effectiveness. This would provide an immediate benefit to property owners and other interested parties. It would also provide the city with data that staff can use for future mitigation efforts. Staff intends to commence implementation of these recommended measures immediately, working on all measures simultaneously. Staff will explore all funding sources to reduce the fiscal burden on the city and will periodically revisit these recommendations as new data and opportunities present themselves. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have, and I have other staff members here to assist me if I'm unable to answer that.
Are there any questions?
Questions?
Councilor Meade?
Just curious, the properties on Central Avenue that were flooded, does any of this include, I realize that the warning systems and that sort of things would be beneficial to those folks, but do any of the solutions, will they be of direct benefit to those owners, those properties?
I think it could be if the capacity of the tunnel is increased at all through maintenance and whatever and debris removal, it should have more capacity, which should prevent the tunnel from backing up and causing a backwater situation. But then comes down Central. So in the end, so it should help them.
And additionally, Ms. Meade, some of those properties on Central participated in the grant program for the
Yes.
flood shields in the early 2000s because of the potential impact to their property. So presumably they would be eligible
Right.
to participate yet again in another program.
Right.
Thanks.
Right.
And on the supplemental flood insurance program, so a flood insurance policy for a typical homeowner is about $1,000 a year. Would this be a pooled insurance policy or a pooled program of some kind with a city doing something to administer it, or are you talking about laying this off on an insurer somehow?
Well, I think we were looking at an insurer I don't know that the city can do this. I'm not sure we can do that. So I think it might be a pool, but right now we're finding that it's already offered by existing insurance carriers. And it may just be a little bit of research and some education that they know that it's already available to them.
And as far as the choke point that you referred to, in particular the one where Peyton Creek dumps T-bones essentially into Lewis Creek. So you're talking about a sort of a curved approach to merging those waters somehow that would be less of a choke point. Is that? Yeah,
I mean, it's hydraulically, it's not conducive to good flow. So changing the angles and the arrangement of that could increase the capacity of that confluence.
And then on the legal aspects, currently, if a public utility is located on a private homeowner's property, repair to that, for instance, I'll refer specifically to sewer lines. I happen to have personal experience of that. It's the responsibility of the homeowner to cover the cost of repair. So are you contemplating that the city would cover cost of repair to these tunnels, these stormwater tunnels that are located on private property?
Well, that's the question, and that's what we need to. The study will determine how much of that is on private property and how much is public. Access issues, the banks of the creek. Our tunnel is unique, and it's not a tunnel that was all of a sudden built. The city came in one big project for a couple of years and built a tunnel. Some of it was that. Some of it was a tunnel built by the city, but much of it is an individual property owners built over top of the creek. The construction methods vary greatly and can be very concerning. So that would have to be worked out as we do the study and determine how much of it is private property. Would we have to go secure easements from that property owner? Would it be the property owner's responsibility? We don't know the answer to those yet. That would take a study of how, more detail for that.
Okay. So the $650,000 you referenced is what you estimate to be the cost of doing the study.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
And is the $7 million kind of a spitball estimate of?
I'll let Jeff give me the thumbs up. Yes, that's kind of a spitball estimate. Yeah.
And you would anticipate that the $7 million of the spitball projects would be done over a period of years, months?
I would certainly not months. Years, I think is fair.
And are they of such magnitude that, say, an upcoming public works project for which we are going to issue debt might be included? This dollar amount might be included, or is this coming out of the water fund or the sewer and water fund?
The funding sources will certainly vary with the nature of the projects. The $7 million spitball is essentially a rough estimate of what that initial one-time, getting after how many decades of not doing anything we do. That will be then paired with a to-do list of projects that can be sorted in the CIP into the water fund or depending on the nature of that project. The initial project to just get in and clean and improve the hydraulics would probably lie best for stormwater, although that's an awfully big bill for stormwater. But the idea is we're not going to be able to get our head around those questions till we fully understand exactly what it is that needs to get done and how we were going to be able to do it. We can't be monkeying around with the tunnel if that tunnel is supporting someone's house or business without knowing exactly what's going on.
And just out of curiosity, is it a coincidence that we have the opportunity to save $600 and some odd thousand on refunding bonds, and then we have a $650,000. Is that just a coincidence?
When I heard that number earlier tonight, I sort of winced because I thought someone would pick up on that. No, it is a complete coincidence. That was a number that we used using just the hourly costs on most of our consulting engineering contracts.
Thank you.
Councilor Dole.
Couple of questions. And while we're just talking about the tunnel, I wonder, can we use ARPA funds at least for that study, that $600K? Or because there's not necessarily what the city is already receiving, but there's also additionally money straight from the feds or through the state, wherever, but it's federal money separate that you can apply for. And this certainly seems like, worth a shot to at least get that baseline established. So I'll throw that out there. With the supplemental insurance, and I'm just brainstorming here, but would it be possible for the city to contact, I hate to call it an RFP because we wouldn't be buying anything, but to contact the insurance carriers in our area and say, we'd like to get a rate from you on your supplemental flood insurance we'd like to pull Stanton citizens. So if you want to come up with a special rate for Stanton citizens, we'll publicize it. Somewhere in there, it's got to be legal. Something in there. Of course, the man that could answer that is standing right there. And then my third question was with the tunnels. I know we've had some owners of property who have daylighted the creek, and I think that's beneficial to the whole flooding problem. And I wonder if that's true, if we could encourage or have more incentives for where it's possible for owners to daylight.
I can answer that one real quick. I think that's daylighting is definitely beneficial, no doubt. It's definitely beneficial, but it's if you do it piecemeal, it may not be as beneficial because if you have a constriction 100 feet away, but yes, it's definitely beneficial, and the study would indicate more opportunities where it may be beneficial to daylight that if that was the best way to proceed.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
That's not exactly what I was going to say. Daylighting is beneficial in the same way that heart surgery is beneficial. You definitely need to do it, but you need to be very careful on who does it and how they do it. Yeah.
Well, it must be true since both of you agree.
Councilor Dole, to address your question, I think we could look at the idea of publicizing if local insurers had decided that it was in their interest to have a special Stanton flood rate, flood insurance rate. I think publicizing that it's certainly within the health, welfare, and safety of the citizenry. And I don't feel like it would violate the constitutional prohibition about public funds towards a private interest so long as it was left to publicizing the rate.
Right.
But I came up here initially just based on this study. It is worth pointing out from the legal perspective, and we talked about this, depending on the actions that could be taken in cleaning out the tunnel, that can result in damage to some of these older property owners. So that's why a study is very, very much needed, because it could be that you don't want to end up in a situation where you have to purchase a building over the tunnel if the work on the tunnel itself could result in foundational damage to that building.
Vice Mayor Robertson.
I was just going to say, and then of course, John maybe just put a little bit of water on that, but well, I was just going to compliment Jeff and John, and because if my math is right, and I'm not the math genius, I remember the Ellicott City presentation, and that was $100+ million, and somehow 650 and 7 million don't come close to that. So I appreciate. Now, like I said, then John makes a comment about start purchasing buildings, and that could get a little expensive. But thank you for y'all's work.
I have a question.
Councilor Darby.
The team that was assembled, various city departments and outside agencies, who all was on that?
Jeff Johnson, who you just heard from, the Public Works Director. Lyle Hart, who's back in the back here, the city engineer. Pete Kessiker, right beside him with his hand up, environmental programs. And Rebecca Joyce from the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission.
Okay, thank you all. And you all started working on this when?
I think the parts of it the week after the floods in last August. I mean, we've had,
team did.
Yes, we've had some meetings and been trying to, and the study by Wiley and Wilson was the real first step because we needed something as a starting point, and that's why we had to do that first. So,
thank you.
Councilor Holmes.
Yeah, I'm interested in how you would do early warning and because a lot of times, you'll have storms west of here fill the creeks up and then come this way. So you need some way to determine the water that's already flowing plus what's coming down. And so how would you do that?
These sensors, they go along the creeks. They measure the rainfall and they measure the flow of the whatever creek, river, whatever it is. They measure those two things. It would have to be looked at to determine what the threshold was for a warning. If is the water level rising at what rate of the rainfall, all that has to be calculated, and that would determine how much warning we get. We're hopeful that we can get, a decent warning, maybe enough in conjunction with flood shields to put in some flood shields. Maybe move cars that are parked in flood-prone areas. Maybe even do a reverse 911 contact to people that are in that area who could leave, to evacuate that area. But the timing it's hard to do until the company comes in and evaluates and looks at our hydrology and our situation.
About how long does it take to put a shield up? Is there everybody that I've talked to have talked about how heavy they are and how hard they are to get into position. And so, you need some more than just a little bit of warning to get these things in place.
The old shields were very heavy. They were difficult to put in place. And probably most property owners didn't do a drill every year to put them in place and make sure the bolts weren't rusty, make sure there wasn't debris in the channels. The new system is a segmented. It's not one big 3x3 piece of metal. It's individual pieces that are easier to store and much lighter to handle. And they have a rubber seal on both sides. Basically, you slide individuals into this channel and then a clamp comes over the top. So really no tools are really even required to put this in place. I think Billy has some of these flood shields and I don't know how many bolts are on there, but it's a lot of them, isn't it? So yeah, they're very slow and difficult to put in place. Plus storing them is a challenge. So,
it kills me too in some of these floods. Just being down at the restaurant, I've seen ungodly things floating down through the creek, like mattresses. I think we saw like a dryer one time. It's all kinds of, how does that stuff get into the creek? It's just somewhere up the creek, somebody dumps this stuff in a wooded area or something. And
maybe in a backyard, and when the flood levels rise, everything becomes debris. And that's why, we try and put out warnings to remove anything that we had 3 cars in the creek last time. There are 3 vehicles. 2 of them were vans, I think. So anyway, the warning system would give us a chance to move those items. The public education piece could educate people on what not to have near the side of the creek that could end up in the creek. And that's really bad because once that debris gets in there, it backs up the creek and then you have more flooding as a result.
I know in front of my place too, we have a lot of vegetation. They're like trees that grow out of the side of the bank, and they periodically are cut, and it actually affects the flow of the water when they're in full bloom and everything. So, and down where I'm at, it never floods up where I'm at unless it comes up through the floor. But down lower lot down there, you can see a car go underwater just like almost snapping your fingers.
So, my days with insurance, I can say there are some insurance policies that will allow, through a homeowner's policy, flood damage to your basement, but the water has to be hydrostatic pressure that comes through the walls, and it's very limited.
Okay.
And that varies from insurance company to insurance company. Mr. Rosenberg, you're looking for some guidance?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I think, as indicated in the briefing, we're prepared to move forward with the implementation of all 5 of these recommendations, all in concert. And unless council has any reservations about the pursuit of any one of them.
All right. What is council's pleasure?
I would
March.
Yeah, I would
go.
personally say let's do it. I mean, I think that's something we agreed to in our retreat that we needed, and that was a high point for our citizenry is they wanted us to look at flood mitigation. So
Absolutely.
I'm for it.
Really? Well, it's been a year, so we never know when it's going to happen. We need to get on it. To it.
Councilor Dahl?
It makes sense. We need to do something. Climate change is real and it's here, and we're going to have more microbursts. And so I think all of those suggestions or areas are good. So, and we'll hear as it progresses how much money it's going to cost.
Definitely.
Yes, and we don't. So along those lines, we don't need formal action.
Right.
From you this evening. Many of these steps, for example, issuing an RFP for the tunnel study and maintenance project are within my administrative authority as city manager. We'll obviously need to include funds in the budget. So that'll be the mechanism for the approvals that we need from council. To the extent we do need formal approval, will really be in terms of providing for some of these measures in the budget.
And Councilor Meade, are you okay with moving forward? All right. So I think that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next item is item 4, a discussion of establishment of Elders Way. Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This item was requested by Councilmember Terry Holmes in order to memorialize Bruce Elder, a former member of City Council and a former member of the Stanton Economic Development Authority. In your materials, you have a visual depiction of an area proposed to be designated by act of council as Elders Way, and that's a brick walkway in the green space adjacent to Lewis Creek, between the creek and the White Star Mill building. And you also have in your materials a resolution that you may consider in order to take this action. And as we've indicated in the briefing, if council adopts the resolution, we'll make arrangements for a dedication ceremony at a later date. That's what I have to share with you. I don't know if Mr. Holmes has any comments that he would like to offer.
Well, I'd just like to say that, I think we all knew Bruce, and Bruce was a team builder. He was not somebody who tried to separate people. He brought people together, and that's really what we need today all the time. We all need to learn to work together, and he did a lot of good things for the city, both as on EDA and on council. And I just think that, especially right there in front of where his wife lives now, it would be just a real nice compliment to her and what her family is given to the city.
All right. Are there any comments? Councilor Dahl.
I fully support this, and in fact, I'd like to see us put a little park bench in there somewhere. After you eat at Terry's restaurant, you can go rest up on the park bench.
I have some comments about it. I've given this a lot of thought, and I sat next to Councilor Bruce Elder for many years, and I have the utmost respect for the work that he did, and he was a beloved member of council. I do have concerns about the timing. Right now, with the state of the nation, naming anything after anyone is very sensitive, and I believe that we might want to take that into consideration. Also, as soon as we lift these regulations from the procedure of memoranda, the first thing we're doing is naming a walkway after a white council member when we had several members of the Black community that had to wait based off of the procedure of memoranda. I believe that Councilor Elder would appreciate and respect the idea if we were to move forward with naming this walkway after anyone, that we name it after past Vice Mayor Kenneth Jones. And I know that we are short on time, so we can discuss this further at the regular meeting, but I wanted to put my thoughts out there. Councilor Holmes.
I'd like to use an example that we named a street after the last mayor. He was still living, and you know, there was no talk about race or anything like that, and I think most of the Black people in this town love Bruce as much as all of us love him. And I don't think there would be any blowback at all on this. And I just don't understand why it has to be such a sticking point, you know, because I really do believe that I can't think of anybody, everybody I know loved Bruce. Doesn't matter what color you were, what race you were, what religion you were, you know, he had an impact. When he walked into a room, you know, people sat up and listened and smiled and were happy, you know, and I just don't see why it is such a stickler to name this little area that has no name after Bruce.
We can discuss this further at the regular meeting because we're on 2 minutes behind schedule. But thank you for your comments. All right. So the next item is break. Oh, excuse me. Nope. Getting ahead of myself. A discussion of personnel policy manual update to grievances procedure. Mr. Rosenberg.
Madam Mayor, John Venn, our Chief Human Resources Officer, will present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg. Madam Mayor, members of council. In front of you, you have a briefing that outlines some revisions we have made to the grievance policy. Since Mr. Blair has arrived, both of us have been working on a number of policies, and this is one that we think is very important, and to get this revised and to employees as soon as possible. You will see very few revisions are being presented this evening. One has to do with, in terms of the list of officers and employees excluded from the grievance. We would pull that out, which is on the back end of that policy. That would then be put on the intranet for employees to be able to see. We are adding the city building official to this policy by code. This is something that has not been in there, and Mr. Blair was able to determine that's something that should have been in there. So we're adding city building official. And we're also consolidating some subsections under panel hearing for clarity purposes. It wasn't exactly an easy read for folks, and we put it in a manner that we think is much more readable and understandable for employees. And those are the revisions that we're asking you all to consider this evening. I believe, Mr. Blair, correct me if I'm wrong, if you all approve these revisions this evening, we would then have it to circuit court for certification. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Venn.
And I would be happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Councilor Meade.
So there are really not any substantive change.
That is correct.
Thank you.
That is correct.
There's not been anything that's caused this policy there's not been any incidents or anything.
No, sir. We've had actually since I've been here since 2016, we've had 2, which I think is pretty darn good. Thank you for knocking on wood, Ms. Darby.
And that question was posed by Councilor Holmes. Any additional questions? All right, hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we're now on break. We'll be back at 6:30. We're now back from break, and we're ready for item number 6, which is a discussion of resolution authorizing Virginia Department of Transportation inventory adjustments. Mr. Rosenberg.
Madam Mayor, Lyle Hart, the city engineer, will present this item.
Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. So I'm here tonight on behalf of Vdot on basically a record keeping, kind of housekeeping mission. When Vdot constructed FR 1058 Seth Drive in conjunction with the project mentioned here in your in the briefing, when they did this, the city accepted it once the project was done. And it should be noted that Vdot still has it in their records. Seth Drive is still in their records as part of its primary system. And so they just need this fall, as they consolidate and update their records with the Commonwealth Transportation Board, they need a resolution from the city, which a draft has been provided and is attached. And basically is just for the city to authorize them to list it in their inventory as part of the urban system instead of their primary system. And so there's a diagram that was attached, and it shows the sections of Seth Drive that are in their primary system that would basically be vacated from that system. And all of Seth Drive is already in our urban maintenance inventory system with the city, so that would not change.
Are there any questions? All right. This will be considered at the regular meeting under item number F. So thank you. Appreciate the update. All right, that takes us into item number 7. It's a closed meeting. Closed meeting for 1, discussion of possible acquisition of real property within the city. 2, discussion regarding a Pacific Council appointee to the Economic Development Authority. And 3, consultation and discussion with legal counsel requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel pertaining to legal considerations and discussion involving items 1 and 2. I will entertain a motion to go into closed meeting.
Madam Mayor.
Vice Mayor Robertson.
I move that council enter a closed meeting for number 1, discussion of possible acquisition of real property for a public purpose located within the city limits of Stanton, Virginia, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the public body's bargaining position or negotiating strategy pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A3. And number 2, discussion regarding of a specific council appointee to the Economic Development Authority pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1. And item 3, consultation and discussion with legal counsel requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel pertaining to items 1 and 2 pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A8.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Mayor Oakes.
Counselor Holmes.
A second.
All right, we have a second. Any further discussion? Mrs. Ennie, please call the roll.
Ms. Mead. Aye. Mr. Holmes.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Robertson.
Aye.
Ms. Dole.
Aye.
Mr. Claffey.
Aye.
Ms. Darby.
Aye.
Mayor Oakes.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We are now in closed session.
So reconvene. As identified in the closed meeting, motion were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second, Ms. Terry Holmes.
All right, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Ennie, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Robertson.
Aye.
Ms. Dole.
Aye.
Mr. Claffey.
Aye.
Ms. Darby.
Aye.
Mayor Oakes.
Aye.
Ms. Mead. Aye. Mr. Holmes.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We're now back in open session. The work session is now adjourned. We will meet back at 7:30 for the regular meeting. As mayor of the city of Stanton, I call the regular meeting for the Stanton City Council on August 26, 2021 at 7:30 to order. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the next item is the invocation, moment of silence, and tonight that will be done by Councilor Holmes.
And tonight I'd like to talk about the 12 soldiers that we just lost in Afghanistan and the effects of this war on them, their family, and all the other troops that have been there, not to mention the Afghanis that are going to be left there under the rule of the Taliban. I think we should just bow our heads and pray and just hope for the best things for these families, because it seems sometimes like it's been a useless war. And when you lose somebody at the end of a useless war, you know, it just really, really hurts even more. But I'd just like to ask everybody to please bow their head. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is the mayor's report. The first thing I would like to report on, this Saturday will be the second annual Queen City, and I'm going to be very careful on how I say this, Rucking, that's with an R, for 22 Mission. They're asking folks to be at the bandstand at 7 a.m. I don't think it actually kicks off until 7:40, but they're trying to get everyone organized. Now, if you are not familiar with the Queen City Rucking, it is a hike up to 5 hours while carrying a lot of weight on your back. And the weight is supposed to symbolize the weight that our veterans carry with post-traumatic stress syndrome. So the money is going towards our veterans to help them through post-trauma after war. Next item, free COVID-19 vaccinations. Get vaccinated. Monday, August 30th from 4 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., Bessie Weller Elementary School, which is located at 600 Greenville Avenue in Stanton. Walk-ins are welcome. The Pfizer's 12 years and older. Parent or guardian must be present. The Johnson & Johnson is 18 years and older. And this is in a partnership with the Stanton City Schools. So if you haven't been vaccinated, this is a great opportunity to do so. And the next item, the Newtown 2021 Potluck Block Party. It'll be Labor Day Monday, September 6th from 5 to 8 p.m. This is the first block of Church Street between Beverly and Johnson Streets. Please bring a side dish, appetizer, or dessert to share. Please bring your own serving utensils and chair. Homemade barbecue, hot dogs, veggie burgers, and drinks will be provided. Now, that sounds great. For information or to offer to help, call Barbara Whipple at 540-886-2686. And that is it for me. Under the mayor's report, are there any additional items by members of council?
Madam Mayor.
Vice Mayor Robertson.
I too wanted to say, and I appreciate my fellow councilman, Mr. Holmes' comments about those 12 Marines and the Navy corpsmen that lost their life today. Again, with the U.S. there to help evacuate citizens and get our people out of that place. But I also don't want to tell them that what they've done, what our soldiers have done for the last 20 years was useless. What the freedoms that they brought to women that never have had that kind of ability to learn, to learn to do all kinds of things that they just were not used to doing. And so I want to say that, once educated, you can't take that education away. And I think, we don't want to say that what they did was not, was in vain. They actually made a difference. And I think we need to realize that. But like Terry said, to lose some of our America's finest, it hurts. The other thing, and I look in the back and I see a sea of blue uniforms, and I just want to thank our city firemen for being here. And that's impressive in its own. I also would like to say, and I try to say this every meeting, I want, I'm, as a personal thing, I am against mandates for people. I don't think that we can demand or should demand, that you do this or you do that. I think we as a society need to do a better job at convincing people to do something. I will tell you, I'm asking you to please, if you're not vaccinated, consider it. Working at the hospital, I can tell you that right now there's a lot of beds that are full. A lot of beds that, people are struggling with their lives in ICU. And I can tell you that almost all of them are unvaccinated right now. Yes, if you are vaccinated and you have some issues health-wise, yes, you can get breakthrough infections. But you've got something to fight against it, at least, if you are vaccinated. So please, I'm just simply asking, I'm not trying to talk too long, but consider getting vaccinated. I would love to see our community protect themselves. And I'll leave it at that.
And we're also very happy to see our police officers here tonight as well.
I'm sorry. Yes.
You said a sea of blue. So.
I said a sea of blue.
Are there any additional items? Councilor Meade.
So, summer's over in Stanton when the last of the Heifetz and Stanton Music Festival folks leave town. It was a wonderful season for both had wonderful seasons again this year. They bring thousands of folks to Stanton who stay in our hotels and eat in our restaurants. They are an economic engine for our city, and not to mention an absolutely stunning talent that we see at these music festivals every year. So if you've never been, I would encourage you to consider attending a Heifetz or Stanton Music Festival concert. And the other thing is that the other night I attended at Montgomery Hall Park in the Rotary Club's new pavilion, a meeting hosted by the Department of Environmental Quality, the DEQ, that was attended by mostly members of the Lewis Creek Watershed Advisory Committee. And the subject was the status of PCBs in Lewis Creek. Many of you have lived here for a long time, and you're aware that there have been PCBs leaching into Lewis Creek for many years from a former industrial site. It was determined that needed to be cleaned up, and the owners of the site and users of the site have voluntarily agreed to clean up that site. But the bottom line is, don't eat the fish. It's not ready yet. Don't eat the fish out of Lewis Creek. And if you played in Lewis Creek as a kid, watch your liver. So that's all I have.
Are there any additional? Councilor Darby.
Yes, I just wanted to give a shout out to our school systems in the area. They're working really hard all the time to keep our kids educated in school. You know, and they have a lot of challenges. It's like they're walking a tightrope, but it's my understanding and talking to a lot of school folks that the kids are happy to be there. They're excited to be there. Teachers are excited and happy to have them. And, you know, they're doing the very best they can. So I would just encourage folks to, you know, be kind, say a nice word instead of, you know, trying to knock them down, just boost them up and tell them, you know, keep on doing what's right for our kids in schools. So.
All right. Any additional comments? Right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes for the work session and regular meeting of August 12th, 2021.
Mayor, I was absent from the last meeting, so.
Okay. All right. Right. Would anyone like to entertain a motion?
Madam Mayor,
Councilor Claffey.
I move that we approve the minutes of the work session and regular meeting of August 12th, 2021.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I will second that.
Vice Mayor Robertson has second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Zinni, please call the roll.
Ms. Stahl.
Aye.
Mr. Claffey.
Aye.
Mr. Holmes.
Abstain.
Ms. Mead.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Robertson.
Aye.
Mayor Oakes.
Aye.
Ms. Darby.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Right, the next item under the regular meeting is item A, a recognition of Leslie Miller for years of service to the city of Stanton. Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to invite Chief Williams and Leslie Miller to the podium. And as they make their way, I want to express my deep appreciation to Leslie for her many years contribution to the peace and safety and relative tranquility of the city of Stanton. Very deeply appreciated. And with that, I would like to offer Chief Williams the opportunity to make some remarks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. If you could indulge me for just a minute so I could just tell you a little bit about this young lady to my right here. Leslie, actually her first introduction in the police department was late 1987 when she was an intern at James Madison University. She then wanted to come to work for the city. Then Captain Walter Brown, she came in and said, you know, I want to be a police officer. And he said, well, I don't have any police officer positions right now, but I'll hire you as a dispatcher. And she said, sold. So she came to work as a dispatcher in 1988 and actually worked alongside my late wife, Becky, for a year or so. And then they invited her to put her on as a police officer. And unlike all the rest that had kind of come before, and most of us that came after, shortly after she graduated from the police academy, instead of going through field training, they pulled her in this super secret meeting, and she started an undercover assignment that she did for about 8 or 9 months under the pseudonym of Jessica. She was a pretty cute blonde. Now she's a pretty cute brunette, but I digress. With all due respect to her husband, Ben. So she continued her career after doing this, made a number of cases, working closely with the state police in this undercover capacity, then came and did the field training, and then became a police officer and rose pretty rapidly through the ranks, she was our dare officer for a number of years, was a great dare officer, became a corporal. Then a sergeant, where she worked in a number of positions, patrol. She was in support services. And when I became police chief July 1 of 2003, one of the first promotions I made was Leslie to the rank of captain, where she served for the last 18 plus years. I also made her my deputy police chief a number of years ago. So she served when I was not there. Bernie Murphy, city manager from Stanton from 92 to 2000, told me one time one of his management philosophies was if you wanted to get something done, give it to somebody who's busy. And so I always found plenty of stuff for Leslie to do because she always did it really well. The incomparable Lacey King, our mayor, retired deputy chief, was our first accreditation manager. Accreditation is something that was really important to us. He actually led us through 5 accreditation awards. I'm happy to tell you Leslie led us through 6 accreditation awards after that in 2013, 2004, 2007, 2010, 2013, 2016, and then 2020 right before she left. So it's really tough. When she told me in January that she was going to retire, I tried everything and begged and stuff, but she's ready to move on, and super happy for her that she's doing that. And I think she's got another couple weeks and they're headed to France. But again, you see these retirements and you kind of wonder what went into it. But what went into it for Leslie was an extreme amount of hard work and dedication and countless hours that she gave to the city, and the city of Stanton and the Stanton Police Department are much better because Leslie Miller was here. So I just wanted to say that. So thank you.
Thank you. I would like to say that I got to know Leslie Miller. She was the liaison for the police department for the Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association, and she always kept us well informed. The holiday party, though, we would have a gift exchange, a Chinese gift exchange is what they called it. And Leslie was pretty fierce. If she saw a gift she wanted, she went after it. But I've enjoyed getting to know you and working with you with the city of Stanton, and you have been such an incredible asset for this city, and you will truly be missed. With that, I'll give you a moment to say a few words. I'm going to read a certificate of appreciation.
I'm just grateful for the opportunities I've had.
Well, we are grateful for you. City of Stanton, Virginia presents the certificate of appreciation to Leslie A. Miller. In appreciation of your contributions to the betterment of the city of Stanton, the city hereby awards this honor for over 33 years of outstanding law enforcement service to the leaders, employees, and citizens of the city of Stanton. All right. Item B is a recognition of Eddie Snyder for years of service to the city of Stanton. Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to invite Eddie and Chief Garber to the podium. And as they make their way, I would also like to express my thanks to Eddie for the contributions that he has made to the city over his career with us and towards the safety and well-being of its citizens. And I'd like to invite Chief Garber to make remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg. Madam Mayor, members of the council, thank you for having us here tonight. Tonight, we have Eddie has already retired. He's been gone for a little bit over a month now. So we're just now actually giving him his award that was late in coming in. We've actually already had a retirement party for him. But I'll say a few things about Eddie. 20 years with the city. He started his career in July of 1999, retired the 1st of June of this year. So 20 years, that's a lot to be said. He spent his entire career on this shift that's here tonight, which was C shift. He was very well respected. He was known. There's a saying in the fire service that there's a person that we call the senior man, and that was Eddie. And Ed, that's the person that people go to for advice, for whether it's on a job or personal advice. He kind of keeps the harmony of the ship or the shift going without the captain having to get involved. So he's kind of the liaison of keeping things in balance. But you can see Eddie was very well respected by his brothers and sisters that are here tonight representing the fire department. And I'm very proud to have them standing behind us tonight. It's always a bittersweet time when somebody retires from the department, especially when you've been with them for 20 years. They become like a brother to you. But Eddie, on behalf of the city, the fire and rescue department, and the citizens, we congratulate you on your 20 years of service, and we're glad that we could be part of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Eddie. Now, Eddie, I believe you were at the fire department the time that I did a ride along with the fire department, and you guys had a call, and it took me quite a bit to get out of the bed, get down the pole, and you guys were pulling out, and I'm running behind the truck. But anyway, I would like to recognize your years of service. The City of Stanton, Virginia presents the Certificate of Appreciation to David Edward Snyder. In appreciation of your contributions to the betterment of the City of Stanton, the city hereby awards this honor for almost 21 years of outstanding fire and rescue services to the leaders, employees, and citizens of the City of Stanton. So I'm going to applaud you again.
I'll just say thank you to council. It's much appreciated.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank y'all guys for coming.
Thank you.
Stay for the whole meeting.
I know. You're welcome to stay if you would like, but you probably have some more exciting things to take care of. But thank you again for coming. All right, the next item is item C, a consideration of ordinance to amend the FY 2022 budget ordinance for the City of Stanton by adding budget amendment number 2. Mr. Rosenberg.
Madam Mayor, Phil Traer, our Chief Finance Officer, will present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg.
Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. It's a pleasure to be back. Tonight we are here to have budget amendment number 2 for FY 22 for consideration. Budget amendment number 2 totals $4,831,774 and does require a public hearing, which was properly advertised and conducted on August 12, 2021. The breakout of budget amendment number 2 includes the city portion, $194,995, and the school portion, $4,636,779. Details have been summarized in your packet and were reviewed during the August 12, 2021 regular meeting. Budget amendment number 2 includes the following: $194,955 general fund provision, $100,000 of which is carry forward for district layover work, $74,000 for additional staffing position in the sheriff's office awarded by the comp board, plus $18,000 in overtime. This is expected to be covered by state funds. $21,309 to appropriate a Library of Virginia donation for computer equipment at the library. In the education fund, we have $697,940 in fund appropriations to support learning loss in the school's prevention mitigation efforts. Expense appropriations include school improvement leaders, website development, software licenses, transportation expense, technology equipment, and miscellaneous donation. And finally, we have $3.9 million in school CIP appropriations, all ESSER 3 funds primarily used for school construction projects. City manager recommends approval of this budget amendment as presented.
Well, that was a mouthful. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Oakes.
Councilor Darby.
I move to adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2022 budget by adding budget amendment number 2 totaling $4,831,774 as presented.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilor Claffey has second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Zinni, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Robertson.
Aye.
Mayor Oakes.
Aye.
Ms. Darby.
Aye.
Ms. Stoll.
Aye.
Mr. Claffey.
Aye.
Mr. Holmes.
Aye.
Ms. Mead.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Trayer. All right, the next item is item D, a consideration of establishment of Elders Way. Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This item is on your regular agenda, proposed by Councilmember Holmes to memorialize former member of council Bruce Elder, who passed away on February 2nd of 2021. In addition to serving on council, Mr. Elder conducted business here in the city for decades and was also most recently a member of the Stanton Economic Development Authority. The memorial proposed is to name a brick walkway in a green space adjacent to Lewis Creek in memory of Bruce Elder, and that's a green space that's between Lewis Creek and the White Star Mill building, adjacent to Mill Street. You have in your materials an exhibit showing the location of the brick walkway, and you also have in your materials a proposed resolution for council's consideration in order to name the brick walkway Elders Way. And if council determines to proceed with that action, we would schedule and make arrangements for a dedication ceremony at a later date. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Council Member Holmes, did you want to make any comments?
No, I'd like to move that this council adopt the proposal resolution to establish Elders Way.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Dole. Are there any comments by members of council?
Yes, this is Brenda Mead.
All right, Councilor Mead.
I'm going to support this resolution. A couple of months ago, we voted as a body to amend the council procedure memorandum that allowed us to change our previous custom of waiting a couple of years until after somebody was deceased to name a city property after them. So we voted as a body to amend that procedure and allow this sort of thing. And I don't hear any disagreement among members of council as to the worthiness of Mr. Elder for the honor that it would bestow on him, and more importantly on his family and on the city, for his name to be permanently etched onto our geography. And I don't think we should allow political correctness to sway our decision on this, unless we are prepared to wait until a person of color dies who is worthy of the honor. I just think that would be silly. So I'm going to support this because I have a great deal of respect for Mr. Elder.
Anyone else? I would like to state that I'd mentioned earlier that I'd given this a lot of thought. I respected Councilor Elder, and I know that he was a beloved council member in the city of Stanton. I am concerned about the timing of this. We did alter the council procedure memorandum number 14 to take away the requirement that someone has to die and have been passed for 2 years before consideration. It concerns me first with the environment within our nation right now with naming, whether it be parks, roads, statutes, anything at this point that is concerning to me. Also, we have made several members within the Black community wait, and there was a suggestion to waive the procedure memorandum number 14 in order to go ahead and allow this brick walkway and grassy area, flowery area to be named after Counselor Elder. After review of all the council procedure memorandum number 14, we had noticed that there were some living individuals that had been named after a street or a room. So we decided to do away with the requirement to have the person deceased for at least 2 years. Right after we do that, we move forward with presenting the naming of the brick walkway after a white councilman. To me, that does not send the right message, because we did make the Alonzo Hardin's family wait, Dr. John Child's family wait, Dr. Charles Waller, Bertie Hugger, past Vice Mayor Kenneth Jones, Vice Mayor Rita Wilson's family, and Eugenia Taylor's family was denied altogether because she's still living. And all of these individuals have been recognized in Montgomery Hall Park, as well as Booker T. And I think it's important to uphold and recognize the history behind the park, as well as Booker T. But I do not believe that our Black community should be boxed in. I believe they should be able to represent the city as a whole. And I believe that Counselor Elder would appreciate having, if we are going to move forward with naming anything at this point, rather than waiting, I believe he would appreciate having that brick walkway named after the first African-American vice mayor for the city of Stanton, which was Vice Mayor Kenneth Jones, who was also an owner of the only Black funeral home in the city for many, many years. So it is my belief that if we're going to move forward with this, we need to name that area, because Vice Mayor Jones spent a lot of time in the downtown area. We need to name it after him. And I believe that that would be a tribute to Counselor Bruce Elder. So I will not be supporting this effort at this time. All right. Ms. Zinni, please. Oh, did you?
And I was just going to say, and I considered Bruce a friend. I truly did. And we would get together, and I said we were more car buddies than anything else. But like I said, I'm struggling with this because I know what Terry, what you said, and that issue that I talked about at our retreat. There has been some blowback, I can assure you. I've had some phone calls that some people are really upset in the Black community.
From who? I talked to Rita Wilson's family.
This was not the Rita Wilson family, not at all. Just so there is some blowback, and I understand, and that was what I feared most. And I said, this is nothing against Bruce, because I consider Bruce a friend, but I have some real concerns that there was going to be some issues. So right now, I wish we could have a cooling off period or something like that, but
Can we take
I probably right now will not be supporting it. Because I just think it isn't going to be an issue. And I hope you understand where I'm coming from, because there's nothing against the Elder family. It's just at this time.
All right, Ms. Zinni, please call the roll.
Mr. Claffey.
Aye.
Ms. Dole.
Aye.
Ms. Darby.
No.
Mayor Oakes.
No.
Vice Mayor Robertson.
No.
Ms. Mead.
Aye.
Mr. Holmes.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, the next item is item E, a consideration of personnel policy manual update to grievance procedure. Mr. Rosenberg.
Madam Mayor, John Venn, the Chief Human Resources Officer, will present this item.
Madam Mayor, members of council, I shared with you in the work session this evening that the grievance procedure was reviewed by myself, Mr. Blair, City Attorney, and Mr. Rosenberg, and we come forth this evening requesting the approval of 3 revisions. One, to remove Appendix A with a list of officers and employees excluded from the grievance procedure. That actual list will be posted on the city's intranet. We are adding the position city building official, which actually falls under the Code of Virginia. And finally, we're consolidating subsections under the panel hearing for clarity purposes. And if this is approved this evening, I will work with Mr. Blair and we will get this to circuit court for certification. And I would be happy to answer any questions you may have about the revisions that we put forth this evening.
Are there any questions? Right. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Oakes,
Councilor Holmes.
I move that the City Council approve the proposed revisions to Policy 9.1 Grievance Procedure of the City of Stanton Personnel Policy Manual and adopt the revised policy as presented.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor,
Vice Mayor Robertson.
I'll second that.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Zinni, please call the roll.
Ms. Dahl.
Aye.
Ms. Darby.
Aye.
Mayor Oakes.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Robertson.
Aye.
Ms. Mead.
Aye.
Mr. Holmes.
Aye.
Mr. Claffey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next item is item F, a consideration of resolution authorizing Virginia Department of Transportation inventory adjustments. Mr. Rosenberg.
Madam Mayor, City Engineer Lyle Hart will present this item to council.
Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm here on the request of Vdot in regard to Seth Drive, which was constructed as part of a Vdot project. And upon its completion, the city accepted it, and it is part of the city's urban maintenance inventory. However, Vdot is part of their record keeping and updating their inventory. They need from City Council a resolution for it to be vacated from their primary system. And so that is why I'm here to represent tonight. And so request, again, on behalf of Vdot, that the city provide a resolution. A draft has been provided to transfer this out of Vdot's primary system, as it has already been accepted into the city's urban maintenance inventory.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Oakes.
Councilor Darby.
I move that the City Council adopt the proposed resolution authorizing the Virginia Department of Transportation's VDOT request to transfer the portion of Seth Drive constructed by VDOT for the primary system of state highways to the city's local system of roads.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second it.
Councilor. All right. Councilor Holmes is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Zinni, please call the roll.
Ms. Mead.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Robertson.
Aye.
Mayor Oakes.
Aye.
Ms. Darby.
Aye.
Mr. Holmes.
Aye.
Mr. Claffey.
Aye.
Ms. Dahl.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. The next item is item G, a discussion and consideration of utility easements at Stanton Crossing. Mr. Rosenberg.
Madam Mayor, Economic Development Director Billy Vaughn. No. John, are you? I'm sorry. Our City Attorney, John Blair, will be presenting this item.
Welcome.
Thank you. As we ease onto the end of this meeting. All right. Earlier today, I had the pleasure of seeing Councilor Claffey at the EDA meeting. The property at Stanton Crossing, the next major step in this project will be completion of a road from Crossing Way to Valley Center Drive. And in order to build that road, VDOT and Shenandoah Valley Electric Cooperative, as well as VEPCO, which is now Dominion Energy. They need to relocate some utility easements to facilitate the construction of that road. Our city engineer, Lyle Hart, has reviewed these easements, as have I, for legal sufficiency as well as for operational considerations. Today, this morning, the EDA did approve these utility easements, but as the council may be aware, there's a 2010 contribution agreement, and the EDA does not have the full authority to release any property rights on that property. It must receive the consent of council. But this morning, the EDA did approve these easements contingent upon council's consent tonight for these easements, their power line easements, as well as an underground easement for Dominion. And happy to take any questions, but there's a resolution before you, and if you adopt that resolution, Chairman Kyer of the EDA will sign the easements. But it's a little quirk in the process. Normally the mayor might sign, but Chairman Kyer would sign these.
All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Blair? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor,
Councilor Claffey.
I move that City Council adopt the proposed resolution retroactively consenting to the Economic Development Authority of Stanton, Virginia, granting utility easements to Virginia Electric and Power Company and Shenandoah Valley Electric Cooperative on the property known as Stanton Crossing.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
A second. This is Terry Holmes.
All right. We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Ennie, please call the roll.
Ms. Dahl.
Aye.
Mr. Claffey.
Aye.
Mr. Holmes.
Aye.
Ms. Darby.
Aye.
Mayor Oakes.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Robertson.
Aye.
Ms. Mead.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you. The next item is matters from the city manager. Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just briefly, 2 items to share with you. First, I received a warm welcome today at the Stanton Kiwanis Club, where I had been invited to address the club. And I had a nice time with them, and they had lots of interesting questions. And I can share with you that they are very interested in the work that you are doing. And then secondly, at the last meeting, I reported to you that we were making plans to reconfigure somewhat our layout for shop and dine out in downtown in order to fully restore public access to the sidewalks. And I'm pleased to report to you that we will implement those changes tomorrow afternoon. And I'd like to express my thanks to our tourism director, Cheryl Wagner, Greg Beam, the executive director of the Stanton Downtown Development Association, and Jeff Johnston, our public works director, as well as his crews, who will be pulling the laboring oar tomorrow as we make these changes. And then finally, and perhaps unusually, I want to say thank you to our partners with the Alcoholic Beverage Control Authority. They figure into this because there are ABC regulations that apply to every one of the outdoor dining areas for the restaurants. And they've been most helpful in making this transition as easy as possible for the city and for the participating restaurants. So you'll be able to see that change in effect tomorrow afternoon, and it will continue through the end of the program, October 31st. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. The next item is roll call. This evening, we have a new addition to our regular meeting agenda, identified as roll call. Council members agreed to this addition during our retreat earlier this month. Roll call affords each council member an opportunity to bring forth matters for staff follow-up, either during the same meeting or a follow-up meeting, if additional time is required to respond to a council member's inquiry. So what I'll do is I'll just go down the line. I'll start with Councilor Mead, and then I'll move on to Councilor Claffey from there. So, Councilor Mead, did you have any questions for Mr. Rose? Okay. All right. Councilor Claffey?
Yes. I was requesting an update from the city manager on the regional jail expansion expenses. There was some talk whether we were going to get the 25% state funding, and I was curious whether that had been resolved, and what will Stanton's long-term expense be for the remodel out there? What are we going to be liable for? I don't know if that's available tonight or just an update down the line.
I can provide a more thorough update, Mr. Claffey, but I did just to refresh the memories of all members of council. The superintendent of the jail authority plans to confirm with the Virginia Department of Corrections no later than next month that the project as reduced remains eligible for the 25% state match. And if that match remains available, then he hopes to schedule the reduced project for consideration by the Virginia Board of Local and Regional Jails in October. And then once that approval occurs, the project will come to the governing bodies of each one of the member localities for the approval that it's required by each of them. So that's the timeline. He needs to confirm with staff at the state level that the reduced project remains eligible for the 25% match. He plans to do that no later than September. Then it would go to the state board for approval in October. Then it would come to each one of the member localities. Subsequent to that, I don't have the dollar amount at my fingertips, but I can get that to you as well as the percentage share. I'm looking around the room to see if Mr. Traer is still here. So unfortunately, the numbers man has departed, but we'll get that figure, and then the city share remains 20% of whatever that figure is. But we'll provide that to you by email if that's satisfactory.
That's great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Right, Vice Mayor Robertson.
Let me ask you, Steve, you said you talked about the sidewalks. Can you, and maybe Jeff, how are the businesses are they just going to take those chairs, those tables that they have on the sidewalk and just move them will they be losing any or?
No, they won't. In the previous configuration, Vice Mayor Robertson, there was what we call the pedestrian center walkway that was down the middle of Beverly Street. Any mandates for social distancing have been eliminated. And so there's no need for us to provide. We only have really two situations, I think, where the restaurants would bump up against one another. One is the Green Room and Blue Point, and the other is maybe the Pho Shop and Baja Bean, or am I off? Yelping Dog. Okay. So the pedestrian center walkway existed as it was originally configured to maintain social distancing between seating areas for those restaurants. We're eliminating that, so the entire blacktop of Beverly Street is available for seating. And so the restaurants will pick up mostly what they have lost by losing the sidewalk. Okay. There may be a slight reduction in the space that's available, but it's not significant.
Councilor Darby.
Yes. Just curious as to how often or when was the last time that do you ever go out to the other city departments that aren't in City Hall and see department heads, staff, that kind of thing?
I do, Councilwoman Darby. I will say that over the last year, it's not been as frequent as it had been previously or as I would like. But I do, on occasion, make those trips, and I try, when I can, to schedule meetings, for example, with department heads in their offices. It's been a challenging year, and so not as frequently as I would like to have done it.
Councilor Dole?
Well, my understanding of roll call is that this is an opportunity when citizens have asked a question of us that we can bring it forth for everybody. So I think just to let people know that that's the purpose of the roll call. But my question is, I thought the roll call was going to be in the work session, not the regular meeting. So I'm a little confused. And I would like to point out that it's interesting that Mr. Johnson, a new fellow here, he immediately knew Yelping Dog, the name of Yelping Dog. That was just interesting.
Well, he was also the same one that said he didn't let a bit of wine stay in his glass, I think.
So I will, Councilmember Dole, I will tell you that my notes also reflect that this would be added during the work session, and we certainly can make that change if council would like. The reason that we ultimately put it on the regular meeting agenda was the work session is constrained on both ends. It has a starting time and it has an ending time. And as you all know, we're often constrained as it is, and without knowing how many questions you all would have and how long it would take, we made a decision, and I believe we discussed it with Mayor Oakes, to include it on the regular meeting agenda. Certainly, if it's council's desire, we can shift that and include it on the work session.
And it's actually not on the agenda.
It is. The agenda was republished, and what's online does have roll call on it, and I'm uncertain whether there was any notification to council members that it was updated.
Right. Councilor Holmes?
Nothing today, thank you.
And I have nothing as well. So thank you. All right. Our next item is matters from the public. Matters from the public. This part of City Council's agenda is entitled Matters from the Public. It is a time that Council sets aside to hear from citizens and others about a wide variety of subjects. Before we begin, I'd like to share 5 basic ground rules that we ask you to respect as you make your remarks. 1, please come to the podium or begin your call, identify yourself, and complete your remarks within 5 minutes. I will let you know when you've reached your 5 minutes. We ask that you please give your name, your address, and then keep your remarks at 5 minutes or less. When you reach the 5-minute time limit, I will let you know that your time has expired. If you continue to speak, I will ask you to step away from the podium or to end your call. If you continue to speak after I have informed you that you have exceeded your time limit, I will again ask you to please stop speaking and step away from the podium or end your call. If you still continue to speak, I will ask the Clerk of Council to end your call, and if you continue to speak from the podium, you may be charged with disorderly conduct under Virginia Code Section 18.2-415A2. 2, this is a time for us as Council simply to listen to your remarks. In an effort to encourage and maintain orderly conduct, we will not engage in give and take debate. If you are seeking information, you may mention it during your remarks, and the City Manager and his staff may get in touch with you in the days ahead. 3, we ask that you direct your comments to Council as a whole and not to identify members of Council or to an individual employee of the City. If you want to take up an issue with an individual member of Council or an employee, please speak with us before or after the meeting. We are also accessible by phone, mail, or email. Again, we ask that you direct your comments to the Council as a whole. 4, we expect every speaker to be civil and courteous. Using profanity, making personal attacks on an individual unrelated to the performance of their official duties on behalf of the City of Stanton, and does anything that is disruptive to the orderly conduct of this meeting will not be tolerated. 5, finally, as the presiding officer, it is my duty to remind you that if you choose not to abide by these ground rules, I may find that you are out of order and will ask you to withdraw from the podium or to end your call. We certainly do not want to reach that point and even beyond, so we respectfully ask for your full cooperation in observing these guidelines. If you wish, you may obtain a copy of the ground rules from our Clerk of Council, Ms. Zinni. And now we welcome all speakers. The podium is now available for matters from the public as well as remote participation using the Zoom platform. So I'll start with members in the audience, and then we'll go to the Zoom, and we'll just work back and forth. All right, anyone from the audience that would care to address the City Council?
My name is Albino Albert Fossa. I live at 401 Bowling Street. As you all know, I have been picketing the county, not the county, but the city. And the reason I have been picketing is because I have been trying to get a meeting with the appeals board. They gave me a meeting at one time, but it was in conflict with a meeting that I had previously scheduled. It takes about 5 months sometimes to get a meeting, and I could not stop it. I could not change it. I asked them for a new date, and they wouldn't give me a new date. That's ridiculous, and that's out of order as far as I can see. Especially when they get paid $35 for every meeting they had. They had a meeting supposedly without me being present. That's out of order. Completely out of order. I've gone through the channels. I've gone through city manager. I've gone to the person who's in charge of the real estate, trying to get a meeting. No response. Negative, negative, negative. Just a lot of baloney. I've gone through the district clerk court, trying to get a meeting with Chap Goodwin, who's the circuit judge. No response. Nothing happened. I've gone even as far as the state legislator, Mr. Violi, but he's a Trump man. And he says one thing and the real estate people say something else. I haven't heard from him. I haven't heard from anybody. I've been here now probably 14 times. There's not enough time. I have more than enough information that there is a tremendous, and I mean tremendous amount of discrimination and racism involved in appraisals for property in this city. I have the information, but you people don't want to come and even talk to me. And that disturbs me to no end. You want to set up a commission. I would hope that if you set up a commission, that's going to be a waste of time, because you have to have at least 9 people on that commission. At least 9 people who have integrity, not honesty. The prisons are filled with honest people. They're there because they have no integrity. And integrity, for all of you, you should know, is the knowing the difference between what's right, what's wrong, and doing the right thing. I don't like picketing. I have no animosity to anybody, but I want justice. And there's no justice here in Stanton. It's missing. It's out of order. I have to tell you, I believe in the gospel according to St. John, chapter 8, verse 32. Some of you may know it. Some of you may not know it. You shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Free. How can anybody go to an appeals court or an appeals group committee and explain themselves to an appeals committee when they're all realtors? They're all realtors. And who benefits by the increased assessments? There's only one person, only one group that benefit by it. And that's the realtors. Nobody else benefits by it. Do you need all that money? Think about it sometimes. And like I said, it's like Dr. Seuss says, I'm not an ornery person. You are what you are. Green ham, you are not. Do you know what he's saying to the children? How many of you really know what he's saying to the children? He's saying, you are good students. You are good children. You're not pieces of crap. You understand? That's what he's saying when he says you are green ham. You are not green ham. And I don't think you people should have, at least some of you should have come out to see what I have and understand what I'm doing. I don't like picketing. I don't know whether any of you ever picketed, but I picket because it works. It works. And like I said, I have more than enough information. And I am still going through the channels, up further and further and further. I've written letters to the governor, to the attorney general.
Mr. Fossa, your time is up.
To the Justice Department.
Thank you.
And to the...
Thank you. Ms. Zinni, do we have anyone on Zoom?
Something is wrong here. And read the sign.
Mr. Fossa, your time is up. Thank you. Ms. Zinni, do we have anyone on Zoom?
I do not have anyone with their hands raised at this time, and I apologize. Zoom restart for just a moment, but everyone looks present still.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address the council? Ms. Zinni, no hands up on Zoom?
I do not have anyone else's hand raised.
All right. With that, as mayor of the city of Stanton, I now call this meeting adjourned.